Hello and welcome. You're watching Business Lunch. I'm Nisha Podar, and with me as always is my co-anchor Pavitra Parekh. So Pavitra, yes, after yesterday's performance in the market, today is a day of tentativeness, cautiousness, and at the moment at lunch hour, another attempt to come back in the green spot for sensex as well as nifty, but absolutely flat, and has been a volatile trading session so far. When it comes to bank nifty and the financials, they are in the red, 0.21% down. There's a lot of volatility in that space, and mid caps are the ones which are taking the maximum amount of brunt with 0.5% downtick right now. So advanced decline ratio in favor of the declines, and on my chart, ITC UPL having some contra call against a weakish kind of a market, showing good gains and traction at the moment. Pavitra.
Oh, absolutely. ITC has been popping all through, right? It's up 18% in this year alone. In fact, a bunch of the consumption names are doing well today. So whether it's in HUL, Nestle, these are the ones which are, relatively faring better. Metals also coming back. Of course, it's been a time of sharp losses for the metal sector overall. Today, it's looking a lot better, especially if you take a look at the mid-cap space, so something like a JSPL, SAIL, NMDC. These ones are looking a little bit better. Also, tech is doing well in comparison to the rest of the market. The larger names will be up for you, but take a look at something like a Sonata Software, which is buzzing on the acquisition. You have Mastech, Nucleus, all of these doing quite well. On the downside, a lot of the Adani Group stocks once again in focus. You also have, of course, Z Entertainment, which we will talk about, and a bunch of the real estate names finding themselves in the losers list. So that's what's happening with the market action. But let's kickstart the show now by talking about some of the top stories. Like we told you, the NCLT has admitted IndusInd Bank's plea seeking insolvency proceedings against Z Entertainment, casting doubt in the company's merger with Sony. Now that IndusInd has dragged Z to the NCLT, what are the options before Z Entertainment? Can the merger still happen? What is the road from here really going to look like? Lata has spoken to some IBC lawyers and is joining us to tell us more about what we can see from here. Lata?
Yeah, that's important. The source is just legal opinion in the country. Now, the first thing they have to do is to go to NCLAT to ensure that the admission of the case is squashed. Because if the NCLT is admitted, then the management has to go away, the board has to go away, and a committee of creditors will take over, which obviously they cannot allow because then the merger process can't go through. Now, what is the chances? The chances that Z has is that this is not a Z loan that they have defaulted. Z had given comfort to IndusInd Bank to a loan which IndusInd had given to City Networks. And that is called, the legal term for it is debt service reserve account. And Z had committed that it will keep at least 1 quarter of interest and principal in that account. Now, when City Networks itself defaulted, IndusInd wanted Z to pay up that money. And Z has taken them to court. The case is at the moment in the Delhi High Court. So Z's argument will be that this is anyway a disputed loan and therefore the NCLT should not have admitted it. NCLAT actually has discretion. Originally under IBC, NCLAT wouldn't have had the discretion, but after a Vidarbha court judgment in the Vidarbha Industries case, the Supreme Court had given discretion to the NCLAT to allow or not allow a case. And in this case, it's possible that Z has a good chance to say that this case ought not to be admitted at all. Then there are, of course, other arguments that Z can advance according to legal sources. The default happened during COVID, and at that time, the cases were not admitted. There was a general rule applied that you can't take them to the NCLT. So even maintainability can be argued. And of course, Z can also argue that they were not even heard in the NCLT. They could only give written submissions. So in a way, it was also not procedurally correct that the NCLT followed. These are the arguments that we understand from legal sources Z can follow, and therefore they could have a good chance according to these sources.
All right, Lata, thanks so much for breaking down all the legal aspects of the new tangle for Z Entertainment while it is already in the process of a mega merger with Sony. So take a look at that particular counter. The uncertainty because of this particular aspect on the merger process and delay is the one which is weighing on that particular counter. But all eyes on the NCLAT order, whether or not it stays NCLT's admission of this case into insolvency. All right, another stock that is on our focus today is Sonata Software. The stock is up over 4.5% and is higher in trade after, remember, the company acquired Quant Systems, a Texas-based IT services corporation, and we spoke to the company's MD and CEO Samir Dhar on the acquisition and more. Let's hear out what are the benefits of this transaction which is revving up this particular counter.
The market that we serve as Sonata, the modernization story that we have talked to you earlier as well, continues to resonate with our clients. So we're very optimistic about the market trends and what market holds for companies like us as we move forward. Now, clearly, Quant is a growth acquisition. This is all about growth and accelerating growth for Sonata. It's one of the largest acquisition. In fact, it is the largest acquisition for Sonata to date. What it brings to us is really three things. Number one, we've talked about diversifying a business into healthcare, life sciences, and banking and financial services. So the clients that they have really give us a very solid footing into the healthcare, life sciences, and banking financial services industry. And it's a very important area for us because that's the predominant spenders of IT in the digital space. That's one key focus for us. The second is their clients will break into top 5 of our clients. So 2 of their clients will break into top 5 of Sonata, one banking client and one healthcare client.
All right, that is Sonata Software. In fact, they also told us that Quant will be around 1/6 of their overall revenue in the coming few years. So that's important, and it does operate at higher margins than Sonata as well. So that's a positive. But with that, we have to get into a short break now. On the other side, like we told you, the RBI has released minutes of its last monetary policy meeting last. The green for the market, no big move, but at least 25 points higher on the Nifty is where we're at. The Nifty Bank has also moved into the green. There you have it on your screen. It is the mid-caps which are still under a little bit of pressure, around 0.3% lower. But let's talk about the RBI Monetary Policy Committee meetings which came out last evening. They remain quite cautious on inflation but are divided on how it should be tackled. So Lata is here to take us through the minutes of the MPC meet as well as this divided vote. Lata.
Well, actually, the 3 RBI members plus one of the external members, Shashank Kabhide, are in one group, so to speak, and they are all saying that, you know, inflation is down in November and December, but it was down only because of a few items, actually vegetables, and therefore they're still worried that core inflation, the steady state inflation, is high. But, you know, all these hawkish noises were to justify the hike on February 8th. That is how the minutes read. When we heard them in the press conference, we got the impression that they are, you know, very, very cautious on inflation. The minutes are to that extent less hawkish because they're all justifying the February 8 hike. They are not justifying whether another hike is needed, and you're getting that doubt because, okay, I'll come to that in a bit. The 2 other members who don't belong to this group are saying that actually this hike is bad, February 8 hike, because it is pushing the growth into restrictive territory, and that we should wait to see whether the current rate hikes play out and then go for fresh hikes. Now, the important point is that the minutes are outdated. After that, we have got a January inflation, which may well change the RBI's mind. Now, why I'm saying that the RBI sounds a little less hawkish is that the governor and other deputy governors are arguing that we have already taken the rate to positive terrain. That is, interest rate minus inflation has become positive by about 90 basis points. So now when you read the minutes, you're beginning to wonder, do they really want to hike even after the January hike? All I can say is after reading the minutes and looking at the January CPI, there is a chance there is a hike in April, but it is not foolproof. Even after reading the minutes, it is open. Whether April will be the last hike also is not very clear from the reading of the minutes because all of them have gotten outdated by the January CPI number.
All right, Lata, thanks so much for putting all that into perspective. Moving on to another important development of the day. Well, G20 finance ministers and the central bank deputies are meeting in Bengaluru today. In fact, there are some high-level discussions on matters of importance. Well, Parikshit Luthra, my colleague, has been tracking it very, very closely, joining us straight from the location to tell us more on what's on the agenda. Hi, Parikshit.
Well, 500 delegates from across the world have descended in the city of Bengaluru here at the Marriott Hotel, which is the G20 venue for the finance track, and they are brainstorming on various issues. So today you have a session going on cryptocurrencies. to have a policy consensus on crypto assets. There's a discussion going on digital public infrastructure, leveraging national payment systems to enhance cross-border payment arrangements as well. Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman is very much here. She's already met the US Secretary for Treasury, Janet Yellen. She's also met the Finance Minister of Italy. She will hold at least 10 bilateral meetings today on issues related to G20, the global economy, and also global bilateral economic relations as well. We are going to see a lot of discussions on the communique. The communique is the key document, outcome document of the G20 meeting, and it works by consensus. And we believe that throughout the day, there are a number of meetings which are going to be held to have consensus on the joint communication, the outcome document of this meeting. And we are also hearing that there is no consensus yet on the issue of debt vulnerability. India has been asking countries, especially China, to take a haircut on loans because it is the largest lender to many of the developing countries which are under heavy debt right now. But at the same time, China has not agreed to that proposal, and China is asking multilateral development banks to take a haircut as well. So let's see what happens, but hectic discussions going on, and we believe some meetings today will go on till at least 1 a.m. In the night.
All right, and we trust you to bring us up to speed with everything that comes out of those, Pariksha. Thanks a lot for bringing us the details. With that, we do have to get into a short break now, but when we come back, we will bring you the latest from the war in Ukraine amid growing escalations between the Russia and the West. We'll also look at China's stance in the war.
Business lunch, and there is a broad-based recovery in the market at the moment, comfortably in the green sensex as well as Nifty. Bank Nifty is taking the lead. SBI in particular, along with Axis Bank, Kotak Bank, doing extremely well. Let's get you some updates on the Adani saga now, and LIC has disclosed the value of its holdings in Adani Group of stocks. In fact, my colleague Yash Jain is here with all those important details. Tell us, Yash.
Well, Nisha, so the big takeaway from the story is that LIC, that is Life Insurance Corporation of India's investments in Adani Group companies, today on a mark-to-market basis have turned negative. They've turned red today. If one looks at the mark-to-market comparison, we've put some interesting numbers together, which throws more than one interesting conclusion as far as the story is concerned and supports this basic argument of these investments turning red on a mark-to-market basis. I'll just put these numbers to you for a better explanation. The value of LIC's investments, taking the December shareholding under consideration, as of yesterday's close, was 33,632 crore rupees. Now rewind a little to Jan 27th, when LIC for the first and the last time disclosed its stand in terms of its positioning in Adani Group companies. What LIC said, according to them, is as on Jan 27th closing, their holding in Adani Group companies on the equity side was 56,142 crore rupees. The same if you were to calculate taking December shareholding under consideration, that number came at about 62,550 crore rupees. Clearly, there was a difference of about 6,400 crore rupees, which is why we sort of asked this question, that did LIC sell about 6,400 crore of its holding in Adani Group companies between Jan 1st to Jan 24th. That essentially signifies about 10% of LIC's holding in Adani Group companies. If that 10% argument of sale of equity in Adani Group companies is to be extrapolated, then look at the loss. LIC's value of investment in Adani Group companies as of yesterday closing was 33,632 crore rupees. Now adjust that 10% to this 33,000 crore rupees, reduce it by 10%, then you will get the number of 30,221 crore rupees. Now remember this number, 30,221 crore rupees. Compare this to the total cost which they've deployed, 30,127 crore rupees, which means yesterday, as of yesterday, LIC was sitting at a profit, mark-to-market profit of just 94 crore rupees. Today, LIC's investment in Adani Group companies is down more than 500 crore rupees, which means that 94 crore has been eroded and they're actually turned red on their investments in Adani Group companies.
All right, Yash, thanks a lot for taking us through all of those details and explaining that to us. That is the latest on LIC's investment in the Adani Group companies, which has seen a big erosion. And like Yash pointed out, it has turned negative as well. But with that, we're going to move on and talk about some important global stories. As the war in Ukraine inches closer to the one-year mark, tensions are only continuing to escalate at a heightened pace, with China also stepping up the rhetoric against the US and Moscow declaring closer ties with Beijing. Global tensions have surged to newer heights, and calls for total withdrawal seem to be falling on deaf ears. In fact, US President Joe Biden's surprise visit to Kyiv has only made matters worse. So our correspondent Sanjay Suri brings us the latest all the way from Ukraine.
The war in Ukraine is hotting up, and there are signs that this could now spill over well beyond the level that we've seen so far. This is escalating now into a confrontation between the US at the head of NATO on one side and Russia and China on the other. At the moment, that escalation is political and not military in any direct sense, but the political escalation is over a serious war. In a year, we have not seen this level of sharp confrontation build up between the US and China. President Joe Biden is spending a long time now around Ukraine after visiting Ukraine. He gave a firm policy speech in Warsaw where he declared stronger military backing for Ukraine all the way. He's had meetings with NATO chief Jens Stoltenberg, then with the Bucharest Nine, which are the NATO member countries on Europe's eastern front facing Russia. This is turning out to be more than some symbolic visit from Biden. This is now about strategic military decisions that NATO is clearly, at the least, making operational preparations for. On the other side, the Chinese have stepped up their rhetoric against the US while engaging simultaneously in military exercises with the Russians. China's foreign policy advisor Wang Yi met with President Putin in Moscow on Wednesday, and now we have louder and louder claims from both countries of a shared worldview and, of course, of a growing trade relationship and strengthening political ties. This now is turning out to be a very tense situation developing. The US says China is preparing to deliver lethal arms to Russia. China denies this. China has said it will offer a political solution to the problem on the anniversary of the invasion on February the 24th. Now, if that is less than full Russian withdrawal from Ukraine, including Crimea, Ukraine will not accept, nor likely will NATO. And full withdrawal is something Putin is unlikely to accept. The war is in Ukraine, but Ukraine could become the theater, perhaps even a launchpad for a great deal more.
All right, Ukraine can become a theater for a great deal more. That's like a very important line from Sanjay Suri, reporting straight from Ukraine. And geopolitical tension is definitely causing more uncertainty across the globe. With that, it's a wrap on Business Lunch. Mid-Cap Radar comes up next. Thanks so much